All right, I've been reading your guys' comments. I know in the mic video, I said the company name wrong. It's not Behringer, it's Behringer, okay? I know that. I'm sorry. I was nervous. I hadn't been on camera before. I did my best, okay? So you guys can stop commenting about it. But anyways, welcome back. Today, I want to talk about something very important that you should be doing if you want your tracks to get distributed sometime, you know? And this is something that I didn't do for the longest time, and I really should have. And it's listening to your tracks in mono, making sure they're mono compatible. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, I'm sure you're aware of panning and of stereo versus mono, but if you're not, mono and stereo. Stereo is basically every track in FL Studio has a left and a right, right? There's information coming in on the left side of your headphones or speakers or monitors and on the right. So, for example, like this bell, this is some track I've been working on. Listen to this bell. You can see right here, you know, the left and the right, they're not exactly the same because it has some stereo information in it. So, you know, when you listen to your tracks, most of the time you're listening to it in stereo. But there's very, very big benefits of listening to your songs in mono. Now, a lot of people I've seen have said that, oh, the reason why you should make sure that your songs are mono compatible, like work in mono, is because club systems will often play your tracks in mono. And in my opinion, that's not exactly true. The real reason, in my opinion, why you want your songs to sound good in mono is because if you're listening in a live environment, like a club or a bar or something, you're going to be walking around that space a lot. So you want to make sure that no matter where someone is in the room, your song sounds cohesive, it sounds good. Because if you have a really, really stereo, like a song that just doesn't work in mono, right? There's a lot of stereo information. If it doesn't work in mono, then someone's going to hear completely different things, like depending on what part of the room they're in. Now, that's not saying that you shouldn't shouldn't make your song stereo. It's just to make sure that your songs are mono compatible. And it's the same thing with bass. I see a lot of people saying, oh, you should make your bass mono. That's not 100% true. You just need it to be mono compatible. Anyways, let's get into that. Now, you don't actually need a plugin for this. You know, you can play your song and you can go to the master, and I'll just play this for a little bit. Right. Just working on a beat right there. And, you know, we were listening to it, but, you know, if you pull this knob all the way to the right, purple, it'll say 100% merged up in the top left right there. That means it's mono. So that's what the song sounds like without any stereo detail. It definitely sounds a little bit more down the center, of course, and a little bit less detailed, but it still works, the mix. And you can tell because right here on the metering, both sides are identical. See, there's not any differences. If I put this back, the left and right are doing slightly different things. So that's one way you can just quickly, you know, go over here, pull this to the right. You should be doing that every, you know, I don't know. I don't have like a number, but at least a couple times during your mix, just to make sure that nothing sounds completely weird. If you're miking live instruments, this gets into a crazy conversation about phase cancellation and stuff. But if you're just making a beat or you're just using samples, there's no mics, you don't have to worry about correlated audio, then, you know, you just got to make sure it sounds okay. Now, the plugin I did want to talk about is this free one by Brainworks and Native Instruments. It's called BX Solo. And what this plugin does is it allows you to just listen to the mid or side. Side is the stereo. And you can also listen to the left and right channels together and swap them. And also does some width thing here. Now, technically, you don't need this plugin because you can just go down here and, like, if let's say you wanted to just listen to the stereo or just the mono and do this. But I don't think this 100% separated is just the stereo because you can hear it differently. Like, okay, that's what that listens like. But if we solo the side, listen to how different that sounds. There's no kick, there's no bass. So what you're hearing right now is the stereo-ness of the song. Basically, the stuff that's more different in the left and right channels than it is the same. Might be kind of confusing. I'm not even that good at explaining it, but you may have noticed in there was no kick and there was almost no bass. That's a good thing. Now, people are like, oh, you should make your bass mono. That's not true. You just need to make it mono compatible. And I think a good way to do that is to just make sure the low part of your bass is mono and down the center for two reasons. One, if you want a hard-hitting 808 or hard-hitting bass, it's a little bit trickier to get it to sound like that if it's really wide stereo image, like it's coming in differently. on both sides of your your sound system. But two, it's because of that. It's because of that thing I said earlier, which is, you don't want someone to not be able to hear the bass in your song just because they're on one end of the room in a club system. So again, it's not about them playing your songs in mono. It's about the room that you're in. You want your song to sound cohesive. Now, how much do you have to worry about this? It's not like the end all be all. I'm just saying, don't do what I did and just completely forget about this. Solo the mid of your song every once in a while. Soloing the side's not that big of a deal, but solo the mid. And make sure there's no major problems. Obviously, the song sounds better without it, with the side, because I did that on purpose. I'm making the song. I've even got this piano left and right. I've made the stereo. Oh, one more thing before I'm done. I want to talk about stereo. So this is the same MIDI sequence that I consolidated here, and I processed them a little bit differently. And they're both going to different reverb sends. If you want to do this, make sure that you don't just duplicate the track and then pan them left and right. That won't be stereo because it's still like the same thing happening in each side, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Like if I pan these 100% left and right and didn't process them differently, didn't send them differently, it would be the same as them just being on the same channel. Hopefully that makes sense. If you want something to sound stereo, you have to process the left and the right side differently in some way, whether it's EQing them differently, sending them different reverb sends, or if you're miking live instruments physically using different mics, different mic position. That's another conversation, but that's another thing. Something's not stereo just because there's two channels and you're panning them left and right. Hope that makes sense. Anyways, just kind of a PSA, make sure when you're doing your mixing, just if you want your song to be played in a live setting or just somewhere, just make sure you do this. This plugin's free, it's good, but honestly, you could also just do it like this. And yeah, hopefully that cleared something up. Have a good day. Talk to you later.